Hello everyone, welcome to the Smite Draft League Season 2 Playoffs Desk. Glad you could join us for some analysis, speculation, and of course good vibes all around. I'm Deelo, joined here by AnthonyMalum, KingFsher, and Cosmic Warrior. Lads, thanks for joining me, really appreciate it. How we all feeling?
Great, I'm so excited. I'm waiting.
Definitely feeling good. Really excited to get into this season's playoffs. It's going to be a good one.
Oh yeah, we've been waiting for this one, and now it's here, and we're getting into it.
Production team's been putting in loads of work behind the scenes there. Can you guys just speak to the undertakings that we've all been going under individually there? What's been looking like for all of you?
I need a raise.
Raise. Put that down on the books there. I know my man Nooblet behind the scenes been working on some crazy stuff with these graphics every day. You can just pop into the chat, see Nooblet, ask him what he's doing. He's like, graphics, man. Need more graphics.
Yeah, he's a graphics addict.
Well, absolutely, but it's going to be paying off. I know there's going to be some big wig stuff here when it comes to the image department coming in, so make sure to be excited for that. But, lads, let's get right into it. So we're here to talk about Divine Division here, and I'm just going to get right into the questions. So when it comes to the arcs that we've seen from the start of the season until now, the arcs of some of these teams, some of these players, where are some places where things went exactly to your expectations, but maybe where are some places where you were a bit surprised?
It's tough. For me, I think the biggest surprise for me was compared to Season 1, how close and competitive the majority of the sets were. You know, there was your stomp here and there, but for the most part, across not even just Divine, but all the divisions, the games were really competitive. There were a lot of 3-game sets, a lot of surprises. I mean, the first one that comes to mind when it comes to surprises is that Flourish was able to go almost undefeated, but lost a game. And yeah, I think that was big for me, was the competitiveness.
Absolutely. KingFsher, I think you guys could add that.
I mean, I think like kind of tailbacking on the competitiveness, like Season 1, there were a lot of like really kind of big name standout players, and we still have that in Season 2. Like, I mean, Flippin' Ninjas, Evan and Mid obviously comes to mind, but for all of these teams, it was really a lot more of a team effort. I think this time around, we're seeing a lot more kind of even contribution across the board, and as a caster, it's so nice to see in games when, anybody can really make an impact at any time.
Absolutely.
Sure.
What you got, Cosmic?
I think if you look back to like way back when we did the caster predictions on certain teams, I'm pretty sure most of mine were correct. So that's what I got to say. At least one out of every single one, I'm pretty sure was correct.
You got them C2 pants on.
Yeah, I got that future vision.
This man's
I just know what's up. I just know what's up. That's just me.
Hey, that's what you got to do. Is C2, man, respectable. I don't certainly can't say that my predictions have been really going in through. So respect to Cosmic there for seeing the future there, knowing what everything's going to happen. Make sure to ask him, add him in the chat for some of your fortune tellings. He'll be able to hit you up with that. All right, guys, continuing right along here. So when it comes to, of course, the dynamic between wins and losses, I think we can agree that it oftentimes weighs on the execution, skill shots hitting on the battlefield, all that good stuff, movement, tactics. But are there cases or teams maybe in the Divine Division where you believe the game can be won or lost in the drafting room? Where do you guys land on that?
Yeah, I think there was one game that I saw. I don't know if it was Divine, to be fair, but I think they locked in like 3 hunters and they had like a $100 jungle.
No, I remember that.
They lost that game fairly quickly, to say the least. So there's definitely a pretty significant impact, I think, when it comes to draft-wise, especially with just how strong some gods are right now. Just recently Hell getting super buffed. I think letting certain players getting those picks through can really make a big impact on the game and the set as a whole.
Certainly would agree with that. Go on, KingFsher. Sorry.
No, you're all good. I think it's hard to say they're like kind of won or lost in the picks and ban phase, but I don't think enough people like really realize just how big of advantages some teams can get by having their gods. And there's a lot of teams I feel like in this division too, with players that just have so much space in their god pools. I mean, we've seen, like Cosmic said, 300 comps. We've seen 3 assassin comps. It's really, really hard to bin out well. So I think the teams that do that correctly just already elevate themselves to another level of play.
I think for me, the biggest thing about picks and bans is that Fisher's right. It's not just you can win or lose. And it's not even just getting the gods you're good at. It's that some teams go into picks and bans with the mindset of, we don't even care who we get. We want to control what they pick and what they think that we want to pick. And I think when you get into the nitty gritty of that, it gets crazy. I mean, again, granted, he's just a coach for Divine. He's an Immortal captain, Dracul. He plans his picks and bans for both Immortal Sanctified and Divine Eclipse, helping them with it in a way that is less about, let's go in, we want to get rid of this guy's Thanatos and this guy's ADC, but it's, if we ban this, they're going to ban this, which leaves this open so that if we take that, they'll take this after. And that's, to me, where it gets so exciting.
Playing those like chess games with picks and bans can really make that phase such an interesting part of the game. I think sometimes it's a bit underrated with how important that can be. Obviously, like we said, matters what you do on the field, but sometimes it really can be one of the key determinant factors when it comes to building that foundation for you to just step up to victory. Absolutely. Do we think that that's something that's more common in Divine than when we talk about those ideas? When Cosmic was referring to those ideas of those kind of wily comps, 3 hunters and such, do you see that more frequently down here in the Divine division?
I think generally it's more done maybe in Immortal. I don't know if they're quite doing it in Godlike, but I'd imagine it's a little bit more in Immortal just because they're a little more comfortable, a little more confident in the way that they play, and there's, I don't want to say like, trying as hard, but just having fun, not really taking it as seriously, thinking, we can win with this, we can run with this is going to be fun, let's do it. So I think we probably see a little more in the higher leagues compared to Divine.
That's interesting. Okay, so in that case, going off of that, talking about kind of the environment that is the Divine division here. Divine being the lowest division does, of course, mean that the skill isn't quite what we see on par with maybe our Rat Milks in the league there. But it does leave room for maybe a less restrictive environment. What do you guys think is the unique aspect of the atmosphere and the environment, the landscape that Divine provides for its players?
I would say that what's weird about Divine is while, yes, it's the lowest division on paper, last season we had Premier and we had Challenger. It was an easy thing to have a distinct difference from. But Immortal and Divine kind of both feel like they could have been Challenger. And when you look at some of the talent on the teams, what comes to mind instantly, and this could apply to everybody, but the first things that come to mind are like Z10 on Flourish, and you've got Evan on Sunbreakers, and the kind of skill that they bring, and they have higher ranks, but this kind of is just an overarching rule. It really shows that for competitive settings, you can not play ranked and still be a demon. I mean, I think in the league, the person that may apply to the most for me is an Immortal, which we'll talk about later, but I think it's still just a huge overarching thing that, like, while yes, at the bottom of the totem pole on paper, some of the talent that they can bring out is crazy. And I really wish that there was a way for us to see some of these Divine teams take on some Immortal teams. I think it would be surprising.
The Divine division is really strong, definitely. There's a lot of players and teams that could be flexing up, like you said. And I think another one of the things I love about the Divine division is people are so much more focused on kind of their comfort picks or own strategies. It's so wildly different to something where you see like Godlike, where obviously all the players still kind of have their own spin. Different teams have different play styles. But in Divine, I mean, there's just a ton of weird picks all across the board. A lot that are kind of picking up in the meta still that I think some are going to have like a really interesting insight on, give them a competitive edge. But it's a lot more of a grab bag. Really anything can happen in the games. And I think for some teams, they really get a lot of benefits from that.
Certainly. There's a lot of room there for kind of just to mess around a bit. And sometimes, like you said, comfort pick can at times even be the better pick over maybe something that's a bit more objectively secure when it comes to the meta. So always interesting to see people making some room for themselves and making sure to have fun. Because, of course, we're playing a video game here. It's all about having fun as well as being competitive. And I think the Divine players make sure to do the best of both there, which is always a unique thing to see about the division, why I'm so interested in it. So carrying right along. Thanks, lads. So when it comes to, let's talk C2 language. Fish, Cosmic, level with me here. We're going to talk your language. Not mine. I'm not fluent, but builds. What are some items coming off the new patch here that we're seeing as the new hotness maybe? Anything you might dare to say is overrated perhaps? Or maybe a secret life hack that you guys think it's being a little bit slept on? Talk to me here.
There's a few that come to mind immediately. First off, I've been seeing a lot of hunters building Griffin Wings first item, which is definitely a fun item. Honestly, I think it's really good. It's an insane stat stick right now. I think they like increased its power by like 10. It's like 55 power, mana sustain, like 30 attack speed, and not to mention the increased projectile speed, very good. So I've been seeing that one a lot. And just since we've seen, a lot more healers, um, we've been, especially with, hell buffs recently, been seeing some items like Last Grasps and, Rod as well. Rod of Asclepius getting picked up a lot more. So definitely some fun things there. And on the physical side, you've been seeing some vital amplifiers on, like Hercules. I've even been seeing them on certain junglers like Ravana or Thanatos. So there's definitely some fun new builds, and I hope we get to see them here in the playoffs.
For that, Cosby. Anthony, I know you're not a native speaker of the C2 language, but I was hearing some chatter over you from there. Any thoughts you want to share?
All right. I've been playing Smite a really long time, and I've been through some wild metas. And to me, Griffin Wing is the same story as Hasten Fatalis. It is an item that just has an unnecessary passive, has become a stat stick because they didn't touch it for so long, and because everything else has gotten touched, somebody was like, oh wait, this item is hit scan? That's pretty sick to put into my build. It's literally Hasten Fatalis all over again. Hasten Fatalis had 2 metas, one with Golden Bow, one by itself, and then they basically removed it and removed it from characters because it was so unhealthy. I'm not saying Griffin Wing is that good either, which is kind of my problem.
All right, and KingFsher, we have a tie here. We got a landlock between these two people here. We want to care to, chime in with your thoughts here, maybe split it up?
I mean, are we talking about the Griffin Wing specifically?
Yes.
Choose your words careful, buddy.
Ooh, okay. I mean, I'm gonna have to. Nah, I think it's an interesting item. I agree. I think it's a little bit overtuned right now. I think it's like 40% increased projectile speed, something in the area of 15 to 20 attack speed. That combination for me is pretty scary, considering like how a little bit overtuned some of the ADC items are right now. I know they brought Bloodforge down in the patch, but it definitely needs a little bit more balancing. I don't know if that's going to be changes to the item itself or kind of the complementing ones, because by itself, it's still a strong item, but I feel like a lot of the other ADC items right now are what kind of really make it that strong.
Absolutely. Thank you for your opinion on that. I think Anthony was so displeased by you calling a good stat stick that he dipped into the Shadow Realm for a bit there. We saw him just completely disappear into the background. I was terrified. I was like, shoot, we lost Anthony, man.
I really didn't like the Fatalis meta, so I think it might be some,
I mean, hey, man, there used to be Fatalis used to just only be an item on like Freya, and that was fine.
Fatalis Golden Bow meta was my Vietnam. Like,
what about Frost Talus?
Don't even talk about that. You're about to send him into like actual PTSD shivers. Like,
did you see that I was talking about playing Odin ADC? I was building Bologna Frost Talus in ADC at the same time. I was playing everything but a hunter in that meta, and that's how I got rank at that time.
Fatalis meta or only Rage More Sylvanas you can ever play against the rest of your life? Anthony, which one?
Fatalis meta.
Damn.
That's right. Wow. You did a number on my man Anthony Ragemore if you're listening to this when you play that Sylvanas. I genuinely
shot though.
That is pretty impressive. We'll take 4-1 for the castard right there. Putting big numbers up for the production team. Let's go.
Get SDL castard dork.
Ragemore, may you crumble under the rage of your sins.
Anyway,
castard. So, continuing on here. We've heard the name a couple times already so far without even really getting too deep into it. Evan TGW. Obviously, one of the players that across the entire season been having a fantastic performance. And that's going to be just what we maybe expect going into the playoffs. But if you're up against the Sunbreakers here in the Divine Division, do you think the move as the opponent is to try to target Evan through and through, from picks and bans to the late early lane phase to the late team fight phase? Or do you accept that he's going to perform well and try to knock down the pillars that support him?
I mean, I think I have pretty strong feelings on that because, I mean, Evan is cracked. Like, pretty top of the competition in the mid lane right now, can play so many different gods. I think the Awelix really comes to mind as one of the standouts. But if you look like... Yeah, but that team as a whole, when you look at it, I mean, Koalamong in ADC is a massive problem. Ragemore has a broadest god pool in the league. He's performing lights out with it too. I don't think if you try to focus Evan with the picks and bans, there's any way you win the game because it's going to be Sylvana solo or an Asia solo or a Kleena ADC that looked incredible. I think the whole team is really, really good kind of as a core. One player doesn't make that, but it's going to be hard letting some of those picks go past.
Sunbreakers has a really strong comp overall. As Fisher had said, Qualaming, absolutely insane. Cactus Arms, a great support, but honestly one of their best players is their sub. Trap Bunny is really insane. If they ever have any issues with filling a slot, Trap Bunny's gonna hop in there and absolutely wreck shit. I mean, it's gonna be completely crazy. So like Evan TGW, obviously very insane. But I mean, just Sunbreakers, very strong overall, and I don't think there's, just you can't pinpoint one person and just say that's the reason. And I don't think teams really should just be trying to focus one person because the rest of the team is just going to get really ahead and they're still going to have the issues.
So maybe I kind of walk myself into these traps like I talked about earlier, but because I'm so into how picks and bans are played out, I think Evan brings the Lucent effect to the table, but almost worse. So I talk about Lucent from the Immortal division all the time. That people ban his Yemoja, and when they ban their Yemoja, there's just it's a disaster afterwards because while yes, Lucent's Yemoja is disgusting, you don't want to deal with it. Lucent can play a assortment of other characters pretty damn well, and now you've used your bans on 2 supports before phase 1 at times, if not just 1 support, which still can be impactful because you didn't want to go against 1. With Evan, I think it's almost worse, not just because Evan plays a damaging role, but because Evan's God pool, as we've seen, is ridiculous. I'm not sure if the reasoning is maybe playing a bunch of different roles in the past or just playing for a long time. But we saw in a Wheelix mid, we've heard talk about a Loki mid. In the interview, whether or not this airs before the interviews, we heard that Evan played Atlas in the mid lane in a scrim. So if you use any amount of bans, and Z-Tan said the same thing in his interview, if you start using bans on Evan, you are almost wasting them, which I think is just such a strength for a team that goes beyond the player. It's nuts.
It can be really difficult when, bans obviously meant to counter out the enemy team only serve as a boon to them. So you really do have to make sure you're choosing those gods carefully when you're in that phase of the game. Again, to see how that ends up for them. So when it comes, we've just talked about the dynamic with Evan, but of course there, like we said, other really great talent there in the Divine Division. Any other players that just come to mind as rising threats, underdogs that maybe we didn't expect to see as prevalently as we ended up, or just someone who's been really dominant the entire season? Any people come to mind? Any names?
I mean, sorry. You can go ahead there, Cosmic.
Okay.
We'll start with Fish.
So freaking cute.
Oh, you just got overruled.
Oh, now you're blushing. Look at that.
Yo, you don't.
Okay.
Hey, Brizzle,
take
take
all
notes.
All right, it's all right. Reel it in.
We're going mood lighting.
Fish, my man, to you. Cosmic, we'll get to you right afterward. Don't worry, man.
I mean, I think where my mind immediately goes is to support, because I feel like it's kind of one of the unsung roles this season. I mean, Solo's been on a tear, and we've seen so much kind of variability in all the other roles that Almond Butter on the Maui, to me, is one of the most broken picks in the league. It does really, really strong on all gods, but really hits another level with that pick. A huge benefit to his team.
Cosmic, to you.
Yeah, I think an absolute standout player in the Divine Division for me has been Rehum in mid. That guy is absolutely insane. I think he plays Hell, who's been really strong. Might force a ban for that, and just every time I watch him, he's just diffing whoever he's laning against. Strong players, he's gonna diff, and just like in the lane, and then obviously just very strong team fight wise overall. I think he's been an absolute standout player, and I really look forward to watching him.
For me, I mean, we don't like to talk too much about like what we play because it's about the other players. But for me, I always pay the most attention to ADC, and I've always been torn between 2, and then they change one of these teams changed their ADC, one of them being Flourish, and they brought in a new ADC who we haven't really seen on casts, Nobofish, but we saw him a fair bit in Challenger. Or at least I did, because I get, a bit of the insider Challenger, got to see a lot of the match results, a lot of the scrims, and I really think that with the talent we have seen from Nobofish, you combine it with Flourish, you have a bye week to just sit back and relax and observe. When you put all those things into a pot and you cook them together, Nobo is in a really great position to just hang out in his lane, do his thing. You put him on anything from a hyper carry to a vibey ADC, and you let Flourish do their work. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nobofish end up with a stat line of like 2-0-8 and drop 40k damage in any given game.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit more about Nobofish, because I think Nobofish has had a pretty interesting arc across this, from coming from Challengers up into the Divine Division pretty late into the game, late into the scene. When you're that player rising up from Challengers into the late game of this season, of this league, do you think that you're rising in at a position where you have high expectations set upon you, you have something to prove to yourself, or do you think maybe coming from Challengers that the other players around are maybe sleeping on you a little bit, you have to try to prove that you're a threat, prove that you can do the damage, do the work to be the actual carry that they should fear?
I think I'm going to jump in first for this one from, again, I hate talking about myself, but a personal experience. When I played, I've been a part of one scrim in my life, basically. Because I'm not a competitive player, I just like casting and watching the game and getting into like the behind the scenes stuff of Smite. That's what I've always enjoyed. But I played one scrim with Challenger, and I was on the same team as Trap Bunny before Trap Bunny got called up. And I know this is about Nobo, but I promise I'm getting to the reason why. When we were in that scrim, one of the things Trap Bunny was talking about was how bad he wanted to play good, because he's like, I know I should have been drafted. Now he's on a team going crazy. With Nobo and with everybody from Challenger, I think it's that same mindset. It's this league, any amateur league, is as serious as you take it. And if you take it serious and you're disrespected like that in your own mind because you weren't drafted or you were overlooked, then of course you're going to go in a revenge arc. And when it's going as good as Trap Bunny and Nobofish it's going for, I mean, that just fuels you more.
I think you're definitely right in that regard, that a lot of it's kind of brought on by the players. And so far, every player that I've talked to, either in the Challenger division or in the Divine division that kind of like end up flexing up, or even if it was Season 1, they were all super, super hungry to get competitive, get out there. They all had really high expectations for themselves. I know a lot of people have strong feelings about the draft and all that stuff. So I think a lot of it really, really comes from that internal pressure that the players put on themselves. But they definitely have a lot of set expectations, and for the most part, they really manage to hit it.
And I think we're going to see just like the culmination of all of that really expressed here as, playoff finals. Like, obviously, the ending of Season 2, it's the finals, you have your prize pools, and, players who really want to do that. But also, right after Season 2 ends, Season 3 is going to start up. And these players are going to want to get redrafted. They're going to want to end up in higher divisions. And so I think we're really going to see an initiative, or at least I hope to see it, by some of these players, especially, the standout ones that we've been mentioning.
Absolutely. It's always interesting to talk about the mental game, because I think it's an undervalued part of any video game. It's always good to talk about the mental lines behind that, coming into it, how you're feeling emotionally, because that can really reflect in your gameplay. Absolutely. You're coming into it with a good headspace. You're on that revenge arc, like Anthony said. You're bound to be dropping some big numbers. So hopefully going to be seeing Nobo do that in the future. Definitely looking forward to seeing his performance. All right, guys, moving right along. Thanks for that one. Just before we start getting to the wrap up here, I just ask you guys for any favorite Divine moments you guys can think of?
Oh, I've got one.
For me, I'm going to say the Flourish versus Wild Inferno set. Just that was such a great set. That's the big one for me.
What was the comp that you can recall there, just for the audience back home who might not have seen that game?
It was what made the set special for me was not necessarily. I mean, it was back and forth all three games for the most part. I think Game 3 might have been a bit more leaning towards Flourish, but what really stood out for me and what matters, I think, for the playoffs, especially since Flourish has that Week 1 bye, is that Flourish got humanized in the sense of they made a massive, massive mistake, and Wild Inferno didn't even capitalize on the mistake perfectly. They almost threw it away. Flourish pushed out to contest a Fire Giant, left their throne room undefended. It almost died to Fire Minions. Wild Inferno saw that. They said, "What's Mercury ulted? We'll start a fight in mid." Then they almost threw the fight in mid. Zoinked almost was killed in the jungle with Mercury. Got his ult off. Only killed the Titan because of Aegis of Judgment, and they won. But the big thing for me was that kind of mistake in a playoff setting. I mean, you don't get another set after that set. If you make that mistake 2 times, you lose 2 times, you're just done.
Absolutely true. It's Cosmo, man. Over to you. Favorite divine moment.
I think you're gonna agree with me on this one, Deelo, as you were right there alongside of
What
me.
you got, man?
Casting it, dude. When Hack Austin got Maui ulted, and then he hit like the double 360 reverse Maui rail grind on top of the fire giant. That was insane. Like I've never seen anything like that. I've seen the glitches where people get stuck on terrain, but just absolutely like mounting the fire giant was completely insane.
He might not have secured the objective, but like they dominated the objective. He really asserted dominance all over the fire giant. No, that was insane, man. Don't have to be Hobwa to surf, it turns out. But yeah, that definitely I mean, you could hear it like in our voices on that cast. It went from like 0 to like, oh my god, he won the fight
all the way.
Like I don't think he died in that fight. Like he still stayed completely alive. You're just like, yo, no, that was definitely rests as a special moment in my heart and a special moment in SDL history. Fish, over to you, man. You got any special divine moments that you want to share?
I mean, I think from a casting perspective, it was one game Sunbreakers played. I forget their exact week and set, but it was in the picks and ban phase, and they just kept picking assassin after assassin after assassin. They ended up with like 3 or 4 of them on the team, and it was the most insane thing in the world. Just thinking to ourselves, what the heck are they doing? Like, it kind of thought like, it's really out there. We don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off.
Fenrir and
I think Neja. I think it was a Neja Rage more. And yeah, and just seeing them like come out and kind of execute on a comp like that was really cool to see from one of these divisions.
Yeah, and just once again just shows what we're talking about, like the diversity that these players bring alongside the skill. It's just it's a great blend, a great harmony of those two elements. So before we go, lads, let's take a look at the bracket here. I'm gonna be reading off some names. We're gonna go down the list of all 3 of you and just see where we fall in our predictions here. So we're gonna start off with my man Anthony. Anthony, ready for your predictions?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Start off with, okay,
I love everybody, but I'm full sending.
All right, appreciate that. Honesty always good. I'm sure that everyone will understand totally, not leave mean comments. All right, so we have Divine Wild Inferno taking on Divine Eclipse.
Wild Inferno.
Wild Inferno going to go up against Flourish in that case. Divine Sunbreakers versus the Weebs Waifus.
Sunbreakers, but 3 games.
Ooh, but okay. Gotcha. So they put up a bit of fight there. Dark Omen versus Sanctified.
Dark Omen.
Alrighty, moving on then to my friend Cosmic. Cosmic, you ready?
Yes.
Wild Inferno Eclipse.
Inferno Eclipse. I think I'm gonna go with Wild Inferno.
Wild Inferno. All right, Sunbreakers versus Weeb Waifus.
Sunbreakers.
Dark Omen versus Sanctified.
Dark Omen.
Alrighty, and to round it all out, KingFsher, over to you. Divine Wild Inferno versus Eclipse.
I mean, I think I'm going to echo the other 2, but Wild Inferno.
All right. No contrarians here. We're all got our ducks in a row. Divine Sunbreakers versus the Challenger Circuit Weeb Waifus.
I think I'm in line with Anthony. I don't think it's going to go to 3 games, but Sunbreakers, but the Waifus are going to put up a fight.
Alrighty. Dark Omen, round it all out. Sanctified versus Dark Omen.
Gotta be Dark Omen.
Alrighty, so with that, you have heard our predictions. Let's see who's proven right. Let's see who's proven wrong. With that, though, we are indeed out of time. Big thank you there to Anthony, KingFsher, and Cosmic Warrior for joining me today and swapping Smite stories, favorite moments, and all that good stuff as we launch into the Divine playoff season. I'm Deelo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Smite Draft League Season 2 Immortal Playoffs Desk. Glad you could join us for some analysis, speculation, good vibes all around. I'm Deelo, joined here by AnthonyMalum, KingFsher, and Cosmic Warrior. Gents, thank you very much for joining me. How we all feeling?
Good. Great.
Feeling good, yeah.
Cosmic, what'd you say? I'm sorry, buddy.
I said I'm feeling good, yeah.
I like it. All right, respect. Good energies. All right, let's just get right on into it, guys. We don't got too much time here. We gotta zoom it. So, team, famous, or perhaps maybe even infamous to the casters, is Wild Inferno in the Immortal Division for their patient to the point of almost painful playstyle. We did see them switch their method up a bit week 6 of all times with like night and day aggression compared to the normal MO, and it ended up working out well for them for a 2-1 win up against the Sunbreakers. Is playoffs, you think, the time in general? We could talk about Wild Inferno specifically, of course, as well. But is playoffs the time for teams to experiment, or do you guys think it's best to stick to your strengths?
I am going to go first because I think I was the most personally victimized by the bad side of Wild Inferno this season.
I was lucky, man. I was lucky.
I will just say that in my set, I got to a point where I was explaining my thirst for soul, talking about dating Ganesh. But no, I've watched a lot of Wild Inferno.
Naturally.
4 of them play together in a different amateur league where they play hyper aggressive all the time. So I think the week 6 that we saw of them was the best version of them. And I don't think playoffs is a time to experiment. I think playoffs is a time for them to be the best version of themselves. And if they do that, I think they can go really far.
I think I'm probably gonna agree with you on that one. I don't necessarily think playoffs are a time to experiment, but there are a lot of teams that I feel like throughout the season, and it's true in this league, it's true in every league. I think the old Jade Dragons talked about it all the time, like kind of saving strats and stuff, not necessarily, but you're always preparing for playoffs. You're gonna have stuff that you've been practicing for weeks, you're in scrims that you're trying a lot of stuff out in. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some teams kind of head into new stuff, but I don't think it's going to be outright different or kind of a quick change. If they're switching anything, it's something they've been working on for a while.
So I think, there's obviously arguments for both. For one, you've been practicing for 7 weeks, 6, 7 weeks, a certain play style, and if that's what you're good with, your best shot might be to stick with it. But obviously, players are going to be used to that. They're going to know what you're going to want to do, and they're going to try to counter it. And, being predictable is the last thing you want to be in the playoffs. That being said, right now, I think just aggression has kind of just been the name of the game with the state of the map. No really early objectives to go for. The earliest thing you're really going for is Gold Fury, and obviously that's an entire Gold Fury. It's a very different from the end of Season 9, so I think just more of an aggressive play style tends to be a little bit better, at least as what we have seen in the highest level competitive play. So yeah, I'd prefer to see a bit more of an aggressive style, which Wild Inferno have proven that they can do.
They've proven it, and to success to it. And in my interview with Wild Inferno, a little sneak peek of that, unless it's already gone up. But they actually did reveal they're looking to maybe change things up a little bit. They said, always sub 30 games here. And that is definitely an interesting thing to hear from the people who have certainly had no issue keeping it very, very far from that. So we're just going to see how it all stacks up when it comes to the end game. All right, continuing right along, guys. Thanks for all that. We all know that chemistry is an important part of any team, of course. When we look across the Immortal landscape here, are there any teams that you guys feel have an A+ on their report cards, or any teams that maybe have you work? Go on, please.
I feel like there's a good chance we all say the same team, so I just figured I'd throw it out there first. Immortal Oathkeepers has to be like my go-to. There's a strong case for Wild Inferno. Like I said, they play together outside of this division. KingFsher, I feel like, has had ups and downs this season, but I feel like they could definitely pull it through. But I mean, I have a really hard time looking past how much of an A+ that Oathkeepers has that it probably hurts the rest.
It does. I mean, if you've ever listened in the comm or seen any other conversations, it's, oh my gosh, yeah, were they clucking in the pentakill? It's insane just kind of how well that they all get along. And to be fair, I don't really feel like anybody in the league is bad with chemistry. I mean, I know Anthony mentioned KingFsher because they've seen a lot of roster changes, but I don't think chemistry at this point in the season is going to hurt anyone. It's just going to benefit some teams more than it does others, I feel.
I'm going to throw a curveball here. I'm going to go Sanctified. Sanctified are my champions. I'm a Bo believer. I'm a Soulsy believer. I like their team, Jack Cool. I mean, come on. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I respect that. I'm a huge Dracul stan myself.
They put in some good work. I've seen Bo commit war crimes with the Vamana. So it's actually, no, by all means, it's a very, very good pick to look to. Fair enough. Thank you guys very much for that one. So, as we all know, Season of Hope is here. It's upon us, and it's a controversial one. When we look at just the teams and how they've been reacting to these kind of curveballs been thrown in terms of the meta, what teams do you think have been maybe hit hardest by the latest changes, and maybe who has really benefited and excelled under this new meta?
I mean, if we're kind of just looking at a benchmark, and I think I'm thinking specifically kind of about the recent patch where we saw a few changes to Magical Pen. I mean, Magical Pen really stands out in my mind as one of the big ones. And any team where they really rely on their mid laner to do a big part of their damage. I mean, the ADCs in Immortal are something else, but there's a few teams that kind of still rely on that big, hard-hitting mid laner, and I think they're going to have to make a little bit of a change. I mean, I think Flourish comes to mind. Realty is a really, really strong mid laner. And I mean, they're going to be able to adapt for sure. They're all strong teams, but it's going to make a little bit more of a difference, and I think people are kind of thinking it will.
Absolutely, yeah. Going to be interesting to see how people can adapt to all the changes here, and that's why they're in the Immortal divisions, because they have the capability to make sure that they can evolve. All right, moving it right along here as we start to get towards the wrap up. Just a nice softball for all of you. Favorite Immortal moment you guys can think of, something that brings a little tear to your eye.
I'll let you guys go first.
Okay.
Because I have a cheat code. I got 2 of them, so like, this is you guys.
He doesn't have a cheat. It's true. That one's reserved, though. We all know which one he's talking about. Reserved.
I'm gonna steal that one.
Don't worry, because I got 2.
Okay.
Cosmic, I'll pull an Anthony. I'll let you go first.
Okay, dude. All right. Well,
what you got?
I mean, I think just because I was right alongside Anthony, and I think it was a really great call and just a really clean play. Perspective Ducks pentakill on the Ishtar. It's completely insane. F. Dot had some choice words about it, but actually he didn't. He had some choice not words specifically, but that's my answer.
Oh no, off this cast, we are screwed. You better hope this camera never stops rolling, Cosmic. You're done. All right, Fish, you got one?
I think this one kind of relies more around the cast, but it was like a week 2 set between Wild Inferno, and I think you kind of talked about earlier about them changing their play style. But they had a minute 1 game that went like 45 minutes. They did great. I mean, they still perform incredibly well, really mechanically clean, and just casting that one compared to the next game, they really turned up the pressure. I mean, we got off topic. That was a really fun one to get through, but just kind of seeing that back-to-back change, not only from them, but a lot of teams, it's really up and down the entire season, and it's so much fun to watch.
Thanks for that, Fish. Anthony, over to you.
So Cosmic took one, but that's cool. I had another in the bank.
What you got?
I could.
Because I got lucky enough to have 2 pentakill calls, and you can't really beat that. So my other one's just going to be LG Fish. But I do have a second. It's a sentimental favorite. I'm so sorry. I interviewed them. Anime Merkulting into Zarxit's pillar.
Oh, that was
some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
That one's
straight
so
up full.
I forgot about that.
So damn funny.
So funny.
Not that was 100% an anime, by the way. Controller diff, ping diff. It was there was a diff there.
Oh, someone got diff.
So it was a pillar diff.
Yeah, that game went downhill from there. That was an unfortunate one, but certainly a funny moment when it came to the Immortal Division. Absolutely. Thanks everyone for recounting, some nostalgia for the audience to listen to. But before we go, we have one more thing. We're done with nostalgia now. We're talking straight stats. So we're gonna start getting into the picks and predictions here for who we think is gonna be advancing on when it comes to this first round of playoffs. Everyone ready here? We're gonna start off with Anthony, my friend. You ready for some speculation, some picks, perchance?
Can I go last? I think I might have a different take, so I want to go last, just in case.
Let's mix it on up then. Cosmic, I'm gonna start with you, man. You ready?
Okay.
We got Immortal Oathkeepers going up against Immortal Sanctified.
Oathkeepers versus Sanctified.
Sunbreakers in the second round.
God, why did you choose those 2? Oh, that one's tough.
The casters and our choice of.
I will too. What are you talking?
I'm gonna go.
What the hell, man? Give me a name.
I'm gonna go Sanctified.
All right, thank you.
Stand.
Anyway, next, Wild Inferno versus Let Him Cook. Ooh, this is the Challenger Circuit rise up.
Yeah. Go Let Him Cook.
Oh, you kiss ass.
Oh,
what does that mean?
Oh no!
Who am I kissing?
Truly exchanged back and forth.
I don't know, dude. Wild Inferno, they haven't stood out to me.
All right,
okay.
They certainly stood up for some reason. Just might not.
Okay.
Depends on what you want. As
to your credit, now we have the Believer.
There it is. Flourish versus Kingslayers to round it out.
Where's Kingslayers? You said
versus Kingslayers. Flourish and Kingslayers to be the last one.
Man, I gotta look at these.
Toss me a name. Give me a name.
Alright, I'll go Flourish.
No matter name. Any name.
Flourish.
Flourish there. Alrighty, fair enough. Rounding on out. All right, KingFsher, over to you, my friend. We're gonna start off with Oathkeepers versus Sanctified.
I mean, I think it's going to be the most competitive set we see, but we talked about chemistry earlier and stuff, so I got to give it to Oathkeepers, I think. It'll be close, though.
Alrighty, Wild Inferno versus Let 'em Cook.
Love Let 'em Cook as a team, but I think Wild Inferno have been way too strong to go down round one.
Flourish Kingslayers.
Probably going to echo Cosmic, go with Flourish in that one.
Okay, and now finally, Anthony, potentially some controversial hot takes here. Let's see what you got. Oathkeepers and Sanctified.
I knew exactly what my hot take was going to be. So I'm going Oathkeepers.
Okay, Wild Inferno versus Let 'em Cook.
I don't think anybody works closer with Nooblood in the whole damn server, but I gotta go Wild Inferno, and I feel bad. I'm going to go Wild Inferno.
Alrighty, fair enough, man. He's currently shaking behind as he listens to this, but I'm sure he'll be okay. We'll see if we can console him after. Flourish versus Kingslayers to round it all out.
Kingslayers.
Kingslayers, okay.
Because I think we talked about this all season, both on and off cast, that if somebody could harness the power of Iba, that they could have a chance. And I think that Kingslayers is the team that can harness Iba, and that's before you mention Xarxith. And I think when you combine those two, that is a scary freaking team.
We'll have to see if it all clicks into place for them. But either way, it's going to be a showstopper. Looking forward to seeing all these games we get into it. But with that, my friends, we are indeed out of time. Big thank you there to Anthony, Fish, and Cosmic for joining me today and swapping some Smite stories as we launch into the Immortal playoff season. I'm Deelo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time for some more Smite Draft League Season 2 content. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Smite Draft League Season 2 Godlike Playoffs Desk. Cream of the crop in this division. Glad you could join us for some analysis, speculation, and good vibes all around. I'm Deelo, joined here by AnthonyMalum, KingFsher, and Cosmic Warrior. Gents, thanks for joining me. How we all feeling?
You called him KingFsher, so I know Fishers are already triggered, but I'm doing great.
My bad. He's not a fish, he's a bird.
He's like that guy right now with the veins, you know?
How we feeling, Fish?
Looks like him too.
There you go. You fixed it. I'm feeling good.
Glad to hear it. Anthony, Cosmic, how we doing?
Well, I can't complain.
Already asked
Can't
me.
complain. You did ask him, but
Number one host. Watch out,
All
Golden
right.
Boy. He's coming.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Let's get right on into it. So, Godlike here. We all know what that means. It's the top division we have here in the SDL, and that means, of course, it has the best to offer when it comes to talent. But I also think there's the other side of that coin, where I think people kind of expect the sweaty, Cheeto-eating, try-hard underbelly of the server. Where do you guys see Cosmic nodding furiously? Where do you guys see that cliche subverted? And where do you guys see that cliche being a bit spot on?
It's kind of spot on.
Oh no!
Okay, here's my thing. I feel like this will answer a lot and quickly. They have a reason. Almost everybody, and look at Flourish for this answer. Almost everybody in Godlike has aspirations to go pro, and as they should, because they're all crazy. To do that, you have to put an unbelievable amount of time in the game, play an unbelievable amount of ranked, and for almost all of them, it's worth it and working. And if it isn't already, it could soon, because they're all so good and they're so close. They're all on the cusp of making it. So, the stereotype is 100% true, because, I mean, this game is kind of their lives, because they're doing it, but that's okay, because Smite is a game where becoming a pro is more than achievable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'd probably echo that. I think they try hard a lot in games, and you really see that, but I think there's so much more that goes on outside of the games, whether it's just kind of practice in general chat, where you kind of see a little bit more of the personalities of the players shine through. They're not just sweaty rank bots that don't do anything but play the game. I think once game time comes up, though, they really lace up their shoes and get in there.
Yeah, I look at my Smite game time and I see like 2,500 hours and I feel like a fat jackass. And then, I go on Twitter and, Rat Milk's like showing his like stars and says he has like 5,000 hours, same thing with like Wecky and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, they're grinders. They play the game well. and they've practiced for it, and they deserve to be here.
Absolutely. And speaking of Rat Milk himself, como ordenado ratas, what do you do as an
Ay,
opponent
caramba.
when you're very good?
Rat
See,
milk.
can you say that? Exactly. What do you do
Drop
as
your
an
calls.
opponent when you're staring down the milkman himself?
Kill everybody else, and then try to win the 1v5.
That's I mean, that's a tall order, because it feels like we almost talk about Rat Milk too much at times just because of how good the Godlike division is, but the mechanics are on another level. I don't know if there's really much matching up with that, but I think in this division, all the players are so competent and stuff that they're going to have strategies for it. They're going to be prepared to go against kind of a jungler at that caliber, but still seeing it in the games, it's definitely hard to understand what you're supposed to do against that.
Yeah, if it's me, I think my best chance at beating Rat Milk is like DDoSing him.
Oh.
Because there's absolutely no shot. Not that I know how to do that, but
Give him the
Rat Milk is
Hindu man Baskin approach. Go
Cosmic
smash his
arrest
keyboard.
for the playoffs.
Keyboard. Yeah. Take a
Good
more
strategies
physical
all.
approach.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in that case, KingFsher, you did mention that we do talk about Rat Milk a lot, and it's true. We do dedicate a lot of bandwidth to him. So in that case, any rising stars, any underdogs maybe, do you think haven't gotten enough attention in the Godlike division, despite how much talent there is around there? Some people can be overpassed a little bit.
I think there is for sure, and for me that kind of gravitates right now towards jungle, because I think it's in this meta it's one of the strongest roles, and arguably where kind of some of the strongest players are. I mean, there's multiple people now in the SEC that we see in Godlike, and one of the junglers that really comes to forefront for me is Tegvir. We actually saw him playing for solo in the qualifiers. I think it's his natural role, but in the jungle just looks absolutely incredible. I mean, has a few picks that are really, really kind of hard to go against. Obviously, don't want to give any of the other teams
Quadra kill and scouting grounds.
nothing to work off.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks kind of so natural there, and one of the players that I don't really think gets nearly enough attention from us.
Anthony, Cosmic, any other players that come to mind when it comes to underdog picks?
I mean, Miji literally qualified for SEC.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts.
The Godlike flourish just as a whole, I think is a safe point.
Fair enough. Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely have. By no means are we shy on talent when it comes to this division, and in general, of course, in the entire league. All right, continuing right along here. So I'm just gonna give you guys a nice little softball when it comes to just favorite Godlike moments that come to mind. What are you conjuring up?
I mean,
It's the
I can-
Godlike division, folks. Come on now.
Because I know mine, but I want to see if Fisher says mine.
Okay, Fish, what you got?
It's kind of hard because there have been a lot of good moments, and I feel like we've been together on a fair number of casts. But again, I'm gonna go back to the golden boy for the division. The 24 kill Thanatos.
Yeah.
Was I mean, unreal. He just played lights out that game. I think first to get a Godlike in the Godlike division, so
Yeah.
that was also
He
pretty
made it
cool
look
to
like
see.
a Smurf queue.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just such quality content, and being able to kind of watch at live, talk about it as it all went down was such a cool experience.
Absolutely, Cosmic, over to you.
Definitely not casted or watched as much games as Anthony or Fisher. I don't have a great answer, to be honest. I think I'll just go with Midman 5. That's my answer.
I like
I know.
that one.
That's
All
a good answer.
Yeah,
What you got,
before I even answer, that is something like we are kind of speeding through, but that's something that cannot be understated. That like Godlike Kingslayers being basically a new team last second with Midman at the helm, crazy to watch. And I mean, them making the finals would not surprise me in the slightest, and they didn't even exist 2 weeks ago. But for me, I'm gonna go to the same set as Fisher, and I'll be the fun one. My Dr. Seuss rhymes just to get in Fisher's head. Because in the first one, I got into this weird spell of I couldn't escape talking about a cot can, a cot cannot, and it turned into a Dr. Seuss. I ran with it. I only pre-wrote one of them, and it was the very last one. The rest were on the spot, and I love that set.
Very nice. And yeah, to call back to what we have here with the Kingslayers being kind of constructed off the fly, Frankenstein teams are always an interesting thing to see because, of course, you still have to build up the synergy. Synergy is always important, but of course, that also means that the enemies don't really know what to do about you either when it comes to learning your synergy. So it's all about the quickness of who can learn who quicker, who's better at the summer reading homework. So got to see if everyone's doing their assignments when it comes to these playoff games. But that being said, let's get into the wrap up here. We're going to look at some predictions here. I'm going to just throw you guys the teams in the bracket, and we're all going to see what everyone's thoughts are. In fact, the only 2 games here for this first round, so how about we make it fun? I'm going to count us down to 3. I'm going to first give us the teams, of course, and I'm going to just hear you guys all say at the same time what prediction you have. We're just going to talk about it real quick. So we have here Godlike Sunbreakers going up against Flourish in round 1. So I'm going to count down from 3 on 1, I guess, or 0. Yeah, after 1. That's how counting down works. You guys are going to give me your answers. Ready? So 3, 2, 1.
Flourish.
Unanimous. Okay, wow. Anyone want to offer up why?
They're the SCC team.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a world where Sunbreakers can do it because they're a great team, and the way that Zombie manages them is more like a general manager. So there's a lot of brain power in that team. So if Sunbreakers takes it, it's going to be a war that gets them there.
All righty, fair enough. Flourish. Fish. You got KingFsher. Jesus, got anything to say about that, man? Bad.
Oh, I was gonna mention on the tail end because, like I said, I think we all agreed Flourish, but Sunbreakers have a chance for sure. And I think one of the most fun matchups to watch in that is gonna be the solo lane. I mean, they're 2 of the most underrated ones, I think, but Snoozism and Oreo both bring so much to their team that kind of can go unnoticed. So it's gonna be really cool seeing those 2 kind of
Snooze second jungles, it's GG.
I love it. It's something that I would love to see because I personally, I've talked about it in the few casts that I've had of Sunbreakers. I love their movement. Their movement's always so interesting and wily, and it just really shows the depth of play and understanding of each other and the map that these players and Godlike bring to it. So
I'm ready. I'm sorry. I'm just ready for this next one. This is the game we've wanted. It's Rat Milk against the returning defending champions that were his old team, basically, just minus Rat Milk. I'm ready for this one.
It's going to be interesting. All right, guys. Second prediction here in the final one. So we have Dark Omen going up against Eclipse. All right, ready? So 3, 2, 1.
Dark Omen.
Eclipse.
Dark Omen. It's so close.
Stuff. These are my 2 top teams. I'm robbed of what I said the finals would be. So is KingFsher, and I'm pissed about it.
So let's talk about it real quick. Cosmic, just because you're the devil's advocate here, why are you going with Eclipse?
Because he's going with Tegvir.
Tegvir is the GOAT. I think Happens really strong. I think their dual lane just really strong. Ace Concept, very good player.
He's going to get casted.
I like that name. And yeah, that's my reasoning.
Solid reasoning. Fish, Anthony, why are you guys naysayers of Eclipse?
I'll let KingFsher go first.
I don't necessarily think that it's doubting Eclipse. I mean, because like we said, we both had them in our top 2. We kind of thought this was going to be the finals matchup.
What gives them the edge then?
In my mind, I think their mid-jungle support combo, kind of that core 3v3, is a little bit more established. I mean, again, not taking anything away from Eclipse, but I do think Eclipse's side lanes can go absolutely massive in this set, and if so, it's going to be a real barn burner.
The reason I go Dark Omen is the same thing that KingFsher said could work for Eclipse, because Eclipse's side lanes are so good. But Rat Milk is so good at controlling the side lanes and what they're allowed to do in a game that if that precedent gets set early, I mean, it's borderline a GG from the get-go because, I mean, the side lanes of Eclipse will not be able to if they get put under quickly, they're going to drown. They're not coming back up. They've got to shut Rat Milk down by keeping him out of their lanes because you're not going to shut him down. So you just got to keep yourself allowed to farm.
Just going to have to see what ends up coming to pass. And there's only one way to find out, which is by watching more Smite Draft League. But unfortunately, with that, it is out of time for us. Big thank you to Anthony, KingFsher, and Cosmic for joining me here today, swapping Smite stories over the server as we launch into this godlike playoff season. I'm Deelo. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time for more Smite Draft League Season 2 playoffs content.
I could get drunk off the lights of a city, late night phone calls just to say you